Outside the genetics, the second biggest reason why most South Asians don't think they can get in shape is because of their age, and mainly what happens due to the metabolic changes when you get older and stops and stunts your fat loss. Now here's the biggest thing that you need to know about this. Most people think after the age of 40, well, it's absolutely toast for fat loss. You've gone past your heyday, it gets harder as you get older, and there obviously are some metabolic things that actually do happen, whether it's drops in testosterone, different levels of progesterone for females, going through menopause, that actually do create this scientific research to say, hey, yeah, it does get a little bit harder. However, there's so many variables that people don't consider that are stopping them after the age of 40 that are more important than genetics or your hormones. And once you realize this, you can actually take action and you can start making changes today that instead of blaming it on something else that you don't control, you can put your control into things that do actually make changes. Let's think about this. If from the ages of 25 to 45 or 50, there are life experiences that you will have had that will change your course direction on your psychology, your physiology, your mental health, your physical health, and just time in general creates a lot of issues. Let's look at the element of even just having, when you're 40 or 45, what have you had? Well, you'll have probably been married, you probably got kids, you probably had a big stressful corporate job, or you got a pretty decent hefty job. You got lots of stress, might have some family trauma, and you might have had some people that are in the elder generation passing over or passing away. Now these variables take in massive consideration what we call learned behavior. I think personally learned behavior is the most underrated skill that you can acquire. I think learned behavior is one of the biggest things that you need to understand to be able to get amazing results, get in shape, keep it off, get healthier, and basically get everything that you possibly need without putting it in the genetic pool or the things that we don't control. Learned behavior over a course of 10 to 20 years will be hard to break. That's what we call bad habits. Now let's say, for example, you did have some bad habits in your 20s, but you were able to exercise more and you were able to, just go and do things where you were, where the priorities were different, right? In your 20s, your probably priorities were yourself, and in your 30s and 40s, that changes direction. The priorities when you have kids or have a big stressful job end up being you getting pushed down the totem ladder of priorities, and then other things start to crop up, appear above it. So the things that you were doing in your 20s, you're not doing anymore. You're not taking care of yourself the way that you were. So the bounce back or the fat loss or the staying in shape is actually a harder process. But it's because of those learned behaviors. And the biggest reason why it's actually harder for you over 45 to get in shape and change those fat loss behaviors, for example, is because you've had so many bad behaviors for so long. These repeated bouts of learned habits are hard to break because you've practiced them for further time, you practiced them for longer, which means that when you come to changing them, they serve some utility on your life right now. For example, if you like snacking or you like ice cream in the evenings or you drink a bit too much at the weekends, they have massive utility on your life. They're coping mechanisms, they're slices of enjoyment in your day, they're social dynamics, they're enjoyment with friends and family, they're a de-stress. They're all useful. The things that we have right now, whether it's bad habits, good habits, they all serve utility within our life. Which means that to break them or to change the habits, to be able to change that learned behavior, we need to look at what's not serving us, but then also look at how do we change that to create some positive reinforcement. So once you practice something for over 20 years, it becomes a habit, and then it becomes a learned behavior, whether it's good or bad. So the reason why over 45 it's harder to change is because those learned behaviors that you've learned are 20 years old. They have some positive reinforcement because they help you in your day-to-day life right now. And thirdly is that most people are a sucker for blaming their genetics or not seeing these behaviors or habits as bad things because they've been doing them so long. It's like a cognitive bias or recency bias, right? Recency bias is when you think the last thing that happened to you was the reason why all of it happened to you. So recency bias could be, oh, I tried intermittent fasting, it didn't work, now that's why I gained my bunch of weight. But that weight had been gained for the last 10 years. It's not the fact that you did intermittent fasting, it's because your habits were shit. So once you get over those three major points, which is one, is learnt behaviors, and that are more stubborn and the habits to change. Two is that you probably would have went through life's eventualities, priorities changing, mindset shifting, trauma, stress at work, big events, work, holidays, big social moves, personal moves. And then you take into consideration all of those variables then going into a later life, which is not the same as it was in your 20s. It can be often easy to blame the genetics or the age side of things when there are metabolic compounds that do change in very minutiae form. But if you really want to make big changes, remove your fat, get in shape forever, create a healthy lifestyle for the future, we need to change these learnt behaviours and put ourselves in the driving seat instead of putting it on time or genetics. Once we say that it's our change to make, our learned behaviours, our habits, our things, our priority lists, and all the goals that we have, the more we can make those changes. There's plenty of clients in this world that we've worked with Autonomy that have changed the game when it comes to being 45, 50, 60, 65 and completely changing their health. It's definitely not an age thing. It's an understanding what moves the needle forwards and what is holding you back right now. And if you want to know exactly what's holding you back right now, we run consultation calls to go through exactly the game plan that will help you get from A to B with your fat loss, your fitness and your health. If you want to get one of these calls, drop me a DM or click the link below if it's on YouTube and book yourself in for one of these calls today to get you started. Take away the age excuse, take away the metabolic excuse, take away the genetic excuse and start getting in shape today.